Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo
Namo
tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, Pandey.
Okay, so we finished Pathya verses last week, and we studied some examples from Silakhanda commentary. And some of you have done the activity very well. You have composed some very nice verses, so I'm very happy to see them. So others also, please try to compose a verse by your own. After composing the first verse, it will be very easy for you to compose other verses. So finishing the first one is the difficult task. Okay, so do you have any questions from previous discussions? So last week, Dr. Ryan asked a question from a footnote about Bhante Ananda Jyoti's explanation. So I read it and tried to understand, but actually it's difficult for me to understand. So I will keep trying to understand what he's saying, and I will share with you if I find anything about that.
Thank you, Bhante. Thank you, Bhante.
Okay. So are there any other questions?
Well, Bhante,
Yes.
it's not a question, of course. It's a suggestion, or it's more of a request for Bhante. So since we are learning the rules right now, I would like to request Bhante to teach us a little bit of some kind of, not the rules, the other important things when it comes to composing the stanzas, the gathas. Not exactly the rules, some of the any other methods that we should follow when it comes to arranging the words in a stanza. So are there any rules? Not rules, Bhante. Are there any?
Yeah, I can understand.
Yes.
Actually, there are no such things we can learn under Vuttodaya, but all of them are included in Subodha Alankara. Like things like how to use nice words, how to use nice rhythms, and how to correctly how to correctly keep the line break. Such things are there in Subodha Alankara. So actually in Myanmar, they learn Vuttodaya and Subodha Alankara simultaneously at the same time. So I will explain you some important points which we learn under Subodha Alankara, but actually there are many points to talk about. Like there are some, where you make the verse wrong or fault, and how to make a correct verse, and what are the qualities of a good verse. So there are three whole chapters to talk about those three things.
Yes, Bhante. So maybe it's premature since we are really learning the basics from the Vuttodaya.
Yeah. That's so I will show you one point like this. Actually, what you have to focus on is to make the verse with no confusion. When someone reads your verse, he should be able to understand what the meaning you are telling. That is the main thing. And of course, there should be a correct grammar. Grammar should be there. And the most important thing is you should keep in your mind that the reader does not read your verse with a translation. The reader does not read your verse with a nisaya or translation. He will only read the verse, Pāli verse. So your verse should be something that can be understood by a normal person who has learned Pāli, who knows Pāli. So if your words are here and there and confused, and you cannot and you have to explain the meaning to other person, then the verse is not good, and your work is not successful. So the main thing to keep in mind is that any person who knows Pāli can should be able to understand the meaning you are trying to present by your verse. So that keeping that in mind, you can arrange the words in that order, so that a person like that can understand. And that is a very important point. The reader can be able to understand easily without confusion. Reader should be able to understand easily without confusion. And another thing is that using the nipata, nipatas, how to tell it in English, in indeclinables.
Yes,
am I correct?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
So when you use nipata, like there are some nipatas, pana. There are some nipatas like he, cha, pana. He is a nipata, and cha is a nipata, pana is a nipata. Sometimes ko, there is a nipata as ko. And these nipatas are frequently used in Pāli and in commentaries and sub-commentaries, but there are meanings for them. In commentary also, the Venerable Buddhaghosa does not use these nipatas without meaning, without a purpose. So in your verse also, you should try to not use these nipatas if there is not a significant meaning. There should be a very significant meaning if you use that. Let's say if you want to present the meaning indeed, then you can use he, indeed, or actually. And when you want to add something with another thing, you can use cha. So like that, you should use these nipatas where you have to use, where there is a significant meaning of using them. So without such a meaning, without any importance, you should not use these nipatas, because in a verse you should not use any word that has not a specific meaning. If you use such words just to fill your verse with words, just to fill your verse with letters, if you add such words in your verse, then your verse is not a good verse. In Subodha Lankara, we call it as I can remember, hinattaka. As I can remember, it is a hinattaka dosha. Dosha means fault or something which is wrong. So hinattaka dosha is using words which has not significant meaning. So please do not use any nipata in your verse if you do not want them to use, if you do not want the meaning of them in your verse. So that is another point to keep in your mind. You can note them down in a book, because we are not going to learn Subodha Lankara now. Maybe later we can study Subodha Lankara also. So that is also an important point. When you use these words, please keep that in mind. And another thing is that when you use these nipatas and also upasargas, actually this should be spoken under the word break, yati, line break, line break. When you break the line, like nahi verena vera, verani, nahi verena verani. So here there is a line break, sammantita kudachana. So let's say there is a nipata cha here, cha. This cha should be joined with this previous word, isn't it? Veranicha, buddhocha, ahancha, twancha, like that. Cha is joined with the previous word, not the next word. So let's say if there is only one cha, nipata cha in the verse, but you have to join this nipata with 2 or more words, not only one word, but 2 or more words. We can find such places in texts also. We can see only one word, but we have to join that word with many other words to take the meaning. We call it kakolokananaya, and some other words, terms are also there, like adhikaranaya, and so on. So the simple meaning is that you only use one word, but you take the meaning in 2 or 3 or more places. So in such cases also, when you take the meaning of cha, you you take the meaning as this cha. You take the meaning after putting this cha after that word, like here veranicha, and let's say you have to use this cha after this sammanticha. If you have to join this cha with sammanti, you join it after this sammanticha, isn't it? Not you do not use like this cha sammanti, isn't it? Did you get that point? We cannot use cha sammanti. We can use, but we have to we take the meaning as sammanti cha. Okay.
Bande.
So yes.
In this verse, in the first 2 lines, we don't have ja, no?
Yeah, of course we don't have cha. We don't have cha. I took this as an example. So here when you break the line, just suppose that if there is a cha at the end of the line, but because there are 8 syllables here, 8 syllables are already there, and you want to use a cha, use the word cha also after the word verani, then what you do is, in order to break the line, you put this cha here in the next line. So this cannot be done. This cannot be done. The cha which should be joined with the previous word should be in the previous line, like this. There cannot be cha here. So that this is called as yatihina dosa. The yati word break is mistaken by you. You have to make the verse fault by using the word break incorrectly. There is an example in Subodha Alankar like this. Maha, as I can remember, Maha Metta, Maha Panya, Maha Metta, Maha Panya, Cha Yassa Para Muddaya. Mahametta, Mahapanya, Chayassa Paramuddaya. Please look at these 2 lines. So this is a 8 syllable verse. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 syllables in the first line and 8 syllables in the second line. So this cha, the nipata cha, should be joined with Mahametta and Mahapanya. Mahametta cha, Mahapanya cha. The great loving kindness and the great wisdom. So cha should be connected or joined with Metta and Mahapanya. But you cannot put a cha after this Mahapanya because there are already 8 syllables in the first line. So what has been done is you have put this cha in the second line. Cha yassa paramuddaya. So grammatically this is correct, isn't it? Grammatically this is correct. Cha is still after the word Mahapanya. Cha is still after the word Mahapanya. So in a normal sentence, not in a verse, in a normal sentence, this is correct grammatically. Mahamatta Mahapanya cha yassa paramuddaya. That means Mahametta cha Mahapanya cha yassa paramuddaya. So this is grammatically correct. Yeah.
This is Mahametta Mahapanya cha yatha paramuddaya. Yatha.
Yes.
Yatha.
Is it yatha? Oh, okay.
Yes.
As I can remember, it is yassa.
Yatha.
Yatha. Okay.
And also is paramuddaya.
Paramuddaya.
Yes.
Which book are you referring to? The Chatta Sangayana version?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank
Nangara.
you. Okay. So in the Burmese version, this was Paramuddaya. Like
But
this.
single ta. Paramuddaya. Single ta.
Like this. Paramuddaya.
Mottaya.
Like this.
Yes.
Paramodaya. Okay, this is also correct. So okay, however, in the Burmese book it was like this Mahametta Mahapanya cha yassa paramuddaya, like this. Both are correct. So in a normal sentence, this is grammatically correct. This sentence is a correct sentence, but when you compose a verse, you have to break the line here after Mahapanya because there are already 8 syllables, and then you have the cha has come to the second line. So this is a wrong thing to do in a verse. You cannot put that cha in the second line because this nipat cha should be connected with the previous line. So you should compose your verse so that this cha is there in the first line, not the second line. You cannot start a line with cha, which should be joined with the previous line. So this this rule is there with other nipatas also, not only p, not only cha, but also p and he and so on. So this is also a good point to keep in your mind. And let's go to another example. It's about as I remember, upasagga panamami jinangtang. In the same verse, pa na mami jinangtang panamami jinangtang pa warang vara gunalayang. So here panamami jinangtang pa warang, this is the word pavarang. He who is great or noble, pavarang. So this pa is a upasagga or in upatara according to the Myanmar word upasagga. So what has happened is, in order to break the line, you have separated this as pa varang. So the upasagga has come to the first line, and the rest of the word has come to the second line. So you cannot do this also. You cannot keep an upasagga which belongs to another line in another line. Like this upasagga should be there in the second line, but you have put the upasagga in the first line. So this is also a wrong thing to do. This is also called as yatihina. So when you break the line, you should remember these two rules. And another rule I will I cannot remember an example, but I have told this to you. When you break the line, you cannot break the line like let's say there are only there are four like let's say varagunalaya varagunalayam. So you have to break the line within this word varagunalaya. So when you break, if if 8 syllables are completed just after the word va, maybe you will break the line here, va ragunalaya. Okay, or let's say the 8 syllables are completed just after the letter la, then you will break the line here, varagunala yang. Then the word yang comes to the second line. Okay, so this cannot be done when you break when you separate a word. When you separate a word, in order to keep the line break, you have to at least keep 2 letters in one side, like this vara gunalayan. This can be done. This is single word. This is a samasa, single word, but within that single word you can separate in the middle in order to keep the line break. But when you separate, there should be at least 2 letters in one side, in each side. Like here in the previous side also there are 2 letters, and the next other side in the next line also there are more than 2 letters. So this can be done when you break the line. This is also another thing to remember. So this is also about the line break, and it is important.
Hi, Bante.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a
Okay,
question about last rule. So you said
okay.
that we can break it in the middle of the samasa, but does that mean that? But I mean, do we have to break it in the sense that the word that we break have to make sense? So for example, like in one of my verses, and then the word I think is sakata silo. So I break it after the I mean sukata. So I break after the sukata. So the sukata, it has the meaning itself. So do I need to do that, or can I do like suka and then tasila? If I do suta and kasila, it doesn't make any sense. So do we have to do like, we break the samasa, but it has to make sense?
Yes, of course. When you break samasa, you have to separate the words as they make sense. Like if you break here varagu nalayang, let's say varagu nalayang, then actual word is vara is one word, guna is one word, ale is another word. So when you break the word in the middle, if you break the if you separate after gu, then that does not make sense. So it's not good, and it's not good to do so. But I haven't seen such a rule anywhere. That's why I did not mention that here. I haven't seen such a rule, but this is just not good. We in common sense we can understand that it is not good to separate a word in the middle so that the meaning is confused and it does not make sense. So there is not such a rule, but it makes the verse confused. So it's not good actually to break the word in the middle where it does not make sense. But in some Arya verses, I have seen this happening. Like there is an example I will tell you like this. Khandha dhata yata nindri ya. Khandha dhata yata nindriya. Let's say khandha dhata yata nindriya. So in Arya verse, what has been done is Kandha, oh sorry, Kandha Dhahatayatana. Kandha Dhata. In some texts we can see the line break after Indriya, but it's not good as I think. So here you see Kandha is one group, Dhata another group, Yatanin. Here you have to keep the line break. Yatanin. So if you keep the line break here, what you can see is we have separated the word Indriya. Indriya is one word, but we have separated in the middle of that word Indriya. So this can be done, and still the meaning is not confused. Like in Arya verses, Khanda Dhata Yatanindriya. So the word is, the meaning is not confused. So such places also can be found, but you have to try to break the word so that it makes sense. Okay.
Thank you, Santi.
Okay. So I will tell you when you compose verses in the future also, if I see any mistake according to Subodhalankar, not according to Vuttodaya, but according to Subodhalankar also, I will tell you in the class or in the group, so you can learn from that also. Okay. Shall we go to the today's lesson? So these are some important points to keep in mind. Okay, so now we have to learn Vipula and Chapala. We have already finished Pathya. There are mainly three variations of Arya. They are Pathya, Vipula, and Chapala. There are mainly three variations in Arya verses. Pathya, which we have already learned, and then Vipula and Chapala, which we are going to learn today. So let's read the verse Vipula first. Yattha ganattaya mullanghi yo bhayathadimo bhave vipula. So this is one separate verse according to tradition, and the next one, as we can see, as a half of the same verse, the second half of this verse, Garumajjako Jakaro Chatuttako Dutiyako Chapala. According to Bante Ananda Jyoti, this is one verse, but according to tradition, here are two separate half verses. According to tradition, I will show you the Vuttodaya original text here. So you can see here we finished Gananiyama. That's 17th verse Gananiyam, and the 18th one is Yatiniyam, 19th one is Arya Samanya, the general name of all the Arya verses. And then the 20th verse is Pathya Adima Mathapada Yogang Yasatyanse Sa Pathya, the verse Pathya. And the 21st verse is Vipula. Yattha Ganattaya Mullanghi Yo Bhayathadimo Bhave Vipula. It's the 21st one. And the 22nd one is Garumajjago Jakaro Chatuttako Dutiyako Chapala. So you can clearly see in the original Vuttodaya text and in traditional studies, we consider these as two separate half verses, not two separate full verses, two separate half verses, because in a full verse there should be 4 lines, but here we cannot see 4 lines. We can only observe 2 lines in each verse. So they are not full verses, but half verses, separate half verses. You have to add 2 more lines to complete each of these half verses. So the 19th verse, Arya Samanyanche, it's also a half verse. So you should add 2 separate 2 other lines to fill this as a complete verse. Actually, in the traditional Myanmar books, there are there are those 2 lines completed by Myanmar Seados. You can observe in that those lines in Myanmar Nisayas, like in the book Chandamedani. In the book Chandamedani, those lines are presented. So I did not show you those lines because it will be confusing for some of you. So, however, you can see in the original Vuttodaya text, these are separate half verses, not full verses. So we are learning today the 21st verse and 22nd verse. By the 21st verse, the Vipula verse is presented, the variation called as Vipula. We have already finished Pathya. Now we are going to learn Vipula, the variation Vipula. And in the 22nd verse, the variation Chapala is presented. Chapala. So you can see there are 3 main variations: Pathya, Vipula, and Chapala. So, however, Bhante Ananda Jyoti considers these 2, Vipula and Chapala, 21st and 22nd, as one complete Arya verse in which Bhante Sangharakkhita presented and presents both Vipula and Chapala. Okay, however, I will first explain this Vipula verse. What is Vipula? What is the difference of this Vipula verse from the normal Pathya Arya verse? Yattha ganattaya mullanghi yobhayathadimo bhave Vipula. So here the line break is not presented. You can see line break is not presented. This short straight line is not denoting line break. This short straight line is not denoting line break. It is denoting the sandhi. Yatta ganatta yang ullangi, yatta ganattaya mullangi. It is denoting the sandhi, not the line break. So line break is not presented by Bhante Ananda Jyoti, but in traditional books, as you saw in the PDF, the original Vuttodaya text, the line break is kept here, ullangi. Here is the line break, ullangi. So we recite this verse as Yatta ganattaya mullangi yobhayathadimo bhave Vipula. So the meaning is that Yatta in which verse ganattayang ullanghiya ubhayattha adimo bhave Vipula. This should be separated as ganattayang ullanghiya ullanghiya ubhayattha adimo bhave Vipula. Ubhayattha. Ubhayattha. Ubhaya means both, isn't it? Both. Ubhaya. So in both half lines, in a verse, in both half lines, adimo, the first line, adimo, the first line, ubhayattha adimo, in the both half, sorry, not half lines, in the both half verses, in the both halves, the first line, adimo, first line, what has happened to the first line? Ganattayang ullanghiya. Ganattayang. Gana means group, taya means 3. So 3 groups. Ullanghiya, ullanghati. In Pāli, ullanghati means jump. Jump. So here also that meaning also can be taken like jumping. So or skipping or jumping. So in the first line, let's take the first line. The first line of the verse, according to the Pathya verse, as we learned, there are only 3 groups, isn't it? There are only 3 groups, and there are only 12 measures, 12 matras, only 12 matras, only 3 groups. So if there are more than 3 groups, if the 3 group measurement is skipped or jumped by one measure or 2 measures or however, then that is no more a Pathya verse. That is then a Vipula verse. So let's read the meaning. Where the Arya has a beginning that exceeds 3 bars in both places, it should be called as Vipula. So here both places means both 2 beginning lines, the first line and the third line. So we learned in the Pathya verses, in the first line and the third line, there can also be 3 groups. There can also be 12 measures. That 12 measurement cannot be exceeded, cannot be skipped. There should only be 12 measures. There should only be 3 groups. But what happens if that measurement is exceeded? What happens if there are more than 3 groups in the first line and the third line? Nothing happens. It is not called as a Pathya verse anymore, but it is called as a Vipula verse. Okay, is that clear? So that is the only rule there in Vipula verses. If the 3 groups are exceeded and there are more than 3 groups, like 3 groups and another letter, another 1 letter or 2 letters, then that is called as a Vipula verse.
Hi, Pandit.
Yes, Dr. Ryan.
Yeah, so my question is, so does that mean that this rules applies to both lines, first and third line? And what about if, we have the exceeding for just the first line and the third line is still it has only 3 groups? Then do we still call that verse Vipula, Pandit?
Yes, that's a very good question. I was going to explain it later. It should be learned actually. So if this structure is like this in both lines, the first line and third line, in both lines, if the 3 groups are exceeded and there are more than 3 groups, then we call it a normal Vipula verse. It's a Vipula verse. Okay, Vipula verse. So if this can be only observed in the first line but not in the third line, then that is called as Adi Vipula or Mukha Vipula. We use the word Mukha Vipula here in Vuttodaya itself. It is not shown. Yeah, it's not shown, but it's called as Mukha Vipula because the Mukha is the word, another word for Adi or the beginning. Mukha is sometimes we use Mukha very often in the meaning of mouth, and in some places face. The meaning of the word Mukha is face in some places, but here the meaning of the word Mukha is beginning. The word Mukha, like here, Mukha, beginning. So the beginning line of the verse has the characteristics of Vipula, then but the third line has not that characteristic, then we call it Mukha Vipula verse. Not a Vipula, not a normal general Vipula verse, but it is a Mukha Vipula verse. And if you can only observe this characteristic in third line, not first line, like the first line is a normal Pathya verse. There are only 3 groups in the first line, but there are more than 3 groups in the third line. Then we call it Jaghana Vipula verse. Jaghana means ending, not actually ending, but here we take the meaning as ending. Let's see how Bhante has given the meaning. Jaghana.
For the Anta Vipula.
Yes. We can use Anta Vipula also. Anta Vipula. But the term used in Vuttodaya is Jagana Vipula. Jagana is another word for Anta. Anta. Here is the word Jagana. Jagana is another word for Anta, or the ending. So you have to use it Jagana Vipula or Anta Vipula. So then you have 3 Vipula verses. One is normal Vipula verse. Vipula, you can in a normal or general Vipula verse, you can observe this characteristic in both first line and third line. That is the Vipula verse. And if you can only observe this characteristic in first line, then we call it Mukha Vipula or Adi Vipula verse. And if you can only observe this characteristic in the third line, you call it Jagana Vipula or Anta Vipula. So that is it. And another thing, you can maybe note down these points in your book, because it is not shown in Vuttodaya itself and not shown in Bante's book also, but later on Bante will show those things. Here they are not shown. So another thing is that you can use the normal Vipula verse, general Vipula verse as Ubhaya Vipula. Ubhaya Vipula. Ubhaya means both. So both halves, in both halves, the Vipula characteristic can be observed. We call it Ubhaya Vipula. So then you can remember 3 names as Mukha Vipula, Jagana Vipula, and Ubhaya Vipula. There are 3 variations of Vipula verse. So let's check let's examine this verse, whether it's a Vipula verse. So here Yatha Ga is one group, because 4 measures. Yatha Ga, 4 measures. Nattaya 4 measures, another group. And then Mullang is the next group. Then Ghi is taken. Actually here Mullang, after Lang, the 3 groups are completed here. 12 measures and 3 groups are completed here. But the letter Ghi is taken to the previous line, and line break is kept after Ghi. Here it is not shown, but I will again go to the Vuttodaya text. You can see Yathaga, one group, Nattaya, second group, Mullang, third group, 4 measures in each group, and then Ghi, this one letter is there which is not included in those 3 groups. Okay, one letter is there is extra 1 letter here, Ghi, extra 1 measure, actually not a letter, extra 1 measure here, Ghi. So then because of that, the line break is done after that letter, and because of this reason, we cannot call this verse as a Pathya verse, because according to the Pathya rules, there can only be 3 groups in the first line and the third line. So here that limitation is exceeded, and 1 more measure is there in the first line. So because of this reason, we call this as Vipula verse, not Pathya verse. And then Yo Bhayattadimo Bhave Vipula. Then what happens is that this is an extra letter. So when you go to the second line, should you count the measures beginning from the first letter here? Yo Bhayat. Should you count like that? No, you should count from this previous letter which you took to the first line. You should count the measures beginning from this extra letter. Okay, so you should count the second line starting from the ending letter of the first line. Like Gi Yo Bha is the fourth group. Gi Yo Bha, because there are four measures. Gi 1 measure, Yo 2 measures, Bha 1 measure, 4 measures. So Gi Yo Bha is the fourth group of this verse. And then Yat Tha is the fifth group. Yat Tha is the fifth group. Then Di Mo Bha is the sixth group. Di Mo Bha is the sixth group. It has been a Jagana, you can observe, because in Ariya verses the sixth verse should be a Jagana or a Nagana. Then Ve Vipu is the seventh group. La is the Antagaru. So you can observe all other characteristics of usual Ariya verse. There are the ending Garu here, Antagaru. There is the ending Garu here, and the sixth group has been a Jagana, and that also can be a Nagana. Here it has been a Jagana, and there are 6 more groups. Yattaga 1, Nattaya 2, Mullang 3, Giyobha 4, Yattha 5, Ve Vipu 6. There are 6 more groups apart from Antagaru and Chatta Jagana. So all other characteristics you can observe here. The only difference is that you have exceeded the 3 group limitation of the first line. So that is the difference of a Vipula verse from usual Patya Ariya verses. So
yeah, hi Bhante.
Yes.
Yeah, may I have a question? So how do we know to break the first line after the syllable gi, Bhante? Because it looks like the word is ulangiya, right? So how do we know to break it after the word gi? I mean, what are the feature or the criterion for us to know that we have to break it right there?
Like you're asking something like, why don't we separate the line after yo? Yatta ganatte mullang ghiyo and bhayattadimo bhaveyassa. And
Yeah,
why
so I
don't
guess-
we keep like yatta ganatte mullang?
Yes. So I mean, the related question is, so when we say that we have exceeding syllables in the first line, so the question is, how much is exceeding? 1 syllable, 2 syllables? Is there a limit, Bhante? How do we know?
Limit is actually not shown, but as I have understood it, you can exceed 1 measure. Usually only 1 measure as shown here, but in some examples 2 measures are also exceeded. You can observe in some examples. So there is in the Burmese book something like this is shown. You can separate a group, like let's say a Sa group, Sagana. In a Sagana, there are 3 syllables like Lahu, Lahu and Garu. So you can separate within this verse so that the first measure is included in the first line and the second measure is included in the second line, like this. And also you can separate it so that the 1 and 2, first 2 measures are included in the first line and the third measure is included in the second line, like this. Okay, so you it is not clearly mentioned but it's not clearly mentioned, but as it's explained in the Myanmar book, you cannot take complete group, one complete group to the first line from the second line. Like you cannot take complete sagana to the first line from the second line, but you can take one measure or two measures, or two measures from the sagana. In other verses also, this is about sagana, and let's go to the jagana. It's lahu, garu, and lahu. So you can take first measure, and you can also take first and second measures to the first line, and then third measure you can keep in the second line, but you cannot take full jagana to the first line. So you can take the first measure and the second measure from the groups. Let's say like this. You can take the first syllable and the second syllable from the groups where there are 3 syllables, like groups like sagana and jagana. There are 3 syllables in one group. Let's say like that for now, 3 syllables in one group. So you can take first syllable and the second syllable to the first line, but not all 3 syllables. And sometimes in some groups there are not 3 syllables, like in Magana there are only 2 syllables in Magana. So you can take one syllable from that from those 2 syllables to the first line and keep one syllable in the other line. So talking about Nagana, there are 4 syllables, 4 short syllables in Nagana. So you can take up to 3 syllables, like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 syllables in Nagana. So you can take one syllable to the first line and keep 3 syllables in the next line, or you can take 2 syllables to the first line, or you can take 3 syllables to the first line, but not all 4 syllables to the first line. So you can conclude that you can take up to 3 syllables from the second line to the first line. So that is how it is shown in the Myanmar book, but actually a rule is not shown there. Like actually something like you cannot take a group, you cannot take a whole group from the second line to the first line. The rule like that is not shown in the Myanmar book also. So I'm also not sure about that, but actually as I observed, this is the explanation given in the Myanmar book is actually good for me. But another thing is there, Bhante Ananda Jyoti explains this in another way. He says that this line break is not important. He says that the line break, there we don't want to look for the line break here. In the Vipula variation, the word break may occur after the first or second syllable of the fourth bar. In the Vipula variation, the word break, he uses word break. Actually, there is the line break also. Word break is also there, but we should actually focus on line break here. So line break or word break, according to Bhante, may occur after the first or second syllable of the fourth bar. First or second syllable of the fourth bar. But as I told in Nagana, this can happen after the third syllable also. So as in the example, there may not be a word break owing to vowel sandhi. So as Bhante considers here in this example, there is no line break here, according to Bhante. No line break in this verse. Like like that, there is no line break. That is what Bhante tells, but maybe we have to read more to understand it clearly. The reason is there is a vowel sandhi. So because of that vowel sandhi, there is no word break. Bhante says like that. That means that if a line has the characteristics of the Arya, but there is no word break after the third bar, it is known as Arya Vipula. So what Bhante says is that the difference of usual Patya Arya verse and Vipula Arya verse is that in Patya verse there is a word break or a line break after the first three groups, but in Vipula verse there is not a line break. So that is how Bhante concludes. But I should say this is not the traditional way. Traditionally, we consider that in Vipula verses, the line break is done after one, 2, or 3 more syllables.
So, Bhante,
Yes.
so if like this, why do we not follow the Arya Patyas? If the Arya Patya is easier than this, if like in this verse, if I analyze this verse, I would say like your payata here, and the yo is maybe like a relative pronoun. If we our word break after the gi.
Yeah, that's correct.
Hi, Bhante.
Yes.
Yeah, may I? So that is how I understand this, based on your explanation and the Bhante Anandachoti explanation. So it looks like we put the line break according to the flow of the reciting. So, for example, like here, if there is no sandhi, so it should be the ulangiya and upaya. But because there is sandhi there, but if there is no sandhi, then we should break after the ya, right? Because when we recite, we have to follow. So it should be ulangiya, then we stop there. But because there is sandhi here, so we cannot break it right there. So we have to break it in the front. Should I understand it that way, Bhante?
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Like that is the reason for not breaking after yo, isn't it?
Yes, because there is sandhi there.
Yeah. That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, this is also we have to learn under that yatihina I mentioned at the beginning, under the Subodha Alankara. So in a sandhi, ubhayatta here, yobhayatta should be separated as ya ubhayatta, ullanghiya ubhayatta. So if we separate after yo, ullanghiyo, then bhayatta will be going to the second line. Go to the second line, and that will make a problem there because the one letter from this word has been taken to the first line. U, the letter U is here inside this sandhi, so it has been taken to the first line. So it's not good to separate the line after yo, ullanghi yo, but one can ask a question like this: why don't we separate the line after like yatta ganatte mullang? Why don't we separate like that? Yatta ganatte mullang, then gyo bhayattadimo bhaveyassa. Do you have any idea about that? Why don't we separate after ullang?
Yeah, I think because it's part of the word, right? Bhante? So ulangiya, so it's part of the word. Maybe it's not good to break it in the middle of the word. It's not, because that word is not a samasa. Ulangiya is not a samasa, right? Is it? I don't think it is. But if we break it in the middle, so what I'm thinking is that it should be better just to finish that word. And then, but because we cannot finish that word because of the sandhi, so then we stop after the gi. So it's like the flow of reciting. So we are going to go ulangiya, but we cannot break at the ya because it's sandhi, so we have to break at the gi. And we should not break at the after the lang because it's like, you know, it's part of the word.
Yeah, it's a very good answer actually. So we should try to finish the word. Yeah, that's a very good answer. We should try to finish the word. Like here, we have started the word here, ullang. We started the word, and then we should finish. We should try to finish the ullang here. Ghia, ullang here. Ullang here means having skipped, having exceeded, having skipped or having jumped. Ullang here. It is a gerund, is it? Purva kriya, ullang here. Yeah, Purva kriya. So the word is ullanghiya. So we have started the word yatta ganathayang ullanghiya. Yatta ganathayam ullanghiya. We have started the word now, and we should try to finish the word before going to the second line. So what happens is that we can go on ullang, and then the patya limitation is reached, and then we can take another one letter from the next line, ullanghi. We can take ullanghi. Then the word is almost finished, but still one letter is remaining. Yo is remaining. So if we take this yo to the first line, like yatta ganathe mullanghiyo, then what happens is bhayattadimo bhaveyassa. The second line starts with starts in the middle of a sandhi, not in the middle of actually a samasa, but it's a sandhi. Ullanghiya and ubhayatta, two words are combined as a sandhi. So it's not good to separate in the middle of a sandhi. So because of that, we do not separate after yo, rather we separate after ki. So that will be a good answer. So what about others? Do you have any?
Yeah. Bande, if the third group, when we compose a gatha, if the third group is not like this type of very long word, it's very short word, and they stop exactly at the like the 12 moras. So in that case, we still consider them as a patya.
Sorry, I couldn't get the question. Could you please repeat it?
Because here, this word is ulangiya.
Yeah.
Yeah, the word is very long. But if the word is not ulangiya, it's a short word.
Yes.
So, for example, if they follow but I wanted to compose a vibula, but this word is very short.
Yeah.
And it looks like for the patya rules, but I wanted to compose a vibula. So in that case, I still can take the Lexus labor into the first one.
No. Actually, I wanted to say one of our friends has composed Vipulavas. I think changed it later. So what he has done is this so from the second line has been taken to the first line in order to compose a Vipula. Like in the second line, there is something like so buddho, let's say. The patya limitation is reached in the first line. Okay. Patya limitation is reached in the first line. 3 groups are reached. And in the second line, there is like here, so buddho. Okay. So buddho, that Lord Buddha. So what has been done is that in order to compose the Vipulavas, if this so is taken, actually we hadn't learned it before, so now I'm telling that if you take this so to the first line in order to make it a Vipulavas, that is not good, that is not correct actually. Vipulavas, yeah.
Yes, sorry,
Yeah.
Bante.
Yes.
According to the brother Ryan's explanations, just the work break in the occurs after first or second syllable of the fourth bar, right? And
Yes.
no,
Yes.
yes, there is no work breaks out into the vowel sounding. We apply this rule for the first line or second line. We apply this rule for the second line or first line or second line.
We apply this rule for the first line or second line.
Yes, the first half of the verse or second half of the verse.
Oh, yeah, it's a good question. Yes, we can apply this rule for the both halves, the first half and the second half.
But when you see in the fourth note, in the 18th, this verse is not correct to the text of the first part in ending meter of the fourth Ghana. It means the not applies for the first part of the verse. Just apply second half of the verse.
Are you referring to this Darumajjago Jakar, this one? This half?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because
Darumajjago Jakaro. Okay. Then
yes,
that is the first line. Chatutta is the next line. So,
and we should put the word rest after chat. It means the first or second syllable of the first word.
yeah, you are correct. But yeah, you are correct. So if yeah, let's take this as an example. So
yes, we can see in the example page 64. We can see in the Vipula example
page
for
64.
Yes, 64.
Okay, 64.
Yes, example. That's you mean 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you see si hala di pang pana. No, example. There's here. Si hala di pang pana. That's why they apply the work breaks for the first and second syllable of fourth line.
Yeah, you are correct. That is a good example. We will come to here. Let me finish that second half which you were referring to. So in that second half, let's say, so actually this second half is not an example for Vipula verses. This is not a Vipula verse. Yeah, yes, because this is the example for Chapala verses, right? This is the example for Chapala verses, not Vipula verses. So because of that, yeah. So because of that, Bhante Sangarakhita only includes this Vipula characteristics in the first half, not the second half. So as yes.
Could you please refer to the Chata Sangha, the PDF?
Okay.
So when they divided like after the Munangi and the next come to the Yo Payatha Dimo Pave Vipula.
Yes.
So the next line starts with Yo. For me, if I analyze these words, I would take the Yo as the relative pronoun.
Yeah, it can be taken as that, but why you shouldn't take that as relative pronoun is that if you take that as relative pronoun, actually this should be written with a straight line in the middle, not a comma. We will talk about that later. However, when you take the meaning, you see yatta ganataya mullangi. If you do not connect this ya with mullangi, then you cannot take the meaning of ullangi, because ullangi is not a complete word. But ullangiya Ullanghiya is something like gamiya, gamitwa, having gone, or patita, having cooked. So like that, it is a gerund, purva kriya. So because of that, you should connect this ya with ullanghi. So that is why we can take the meaning like that, not like a relative pronoun. Actually, yeah, you can also think like that. It is think it as a relative pronoun. But when you take the meaning, you will observe that you cannot take that as a relative pronoun, because you should connect that yo with ghi, ullanghiya ubhayatta. Is that clear?
Yes, but as for me, when I analyze the verse, it's difficult to see like this type.
Yeah, it's not difficult. Actually, we also had to understand this with the translation, because this Vuttodaya is not something, not a Pāļi, not like a Pāļi text. No, this is just to introduce the verses. So most of the verses, actually almost all the verses, we have to learn with the translation, otherwise we cannot understand. So so here we were this second half is not an example for Vipula. First half is this example for Vipula. So as Seyale Punyachari asked, can we want to make this this Chapala example a Vipula one. We want to make this a Vipula verse. So can we take this cha to the first line? Can we take that? No, you cannot take that. You cannot take letters from the next line just to make the verse a Vipula one. But when you cannot, like, you should try to make the verse a Pathya verse, because that is the general way of Arya verses. The general Arya verse is a Pathya verse. So if you can finish the line after 4 groups, if you can finish the line after 4 groups, you should finish that. Like, not you should finish that, but it finishes itself. If this row and tie is not connected, you see, if this row and tie is not connected, you can finish the line here. It automatically becomes an Arya verse. Okay, so taking a letter or syllable from the other part does not make this a Vipula verse. It's still a Arya Pathya verse. Vipula verses happen when you cannot finish the first line after 4 groups. When you cannot finish it, you cannot complete the first line after 4 groups, but another 1 syllable or 2 syllables should be there to finish the first line. Then the Vipula verses happen. Otherwise, you cannot just merely take the syllables from the next line to compose Vipula verses. Okay.
Okay, got it. Thank you, Bande.
Okay, then we will examine some examples also. I think Bante hasn't given. Yeah, Bante also has given some examples. So let's go to the next one, and after that we will go to the examples. What's the time now? It's already 8 o'clock. So Garumajjago, Jakaro, Chatuthako, Dutiyako, Chapala. This is the next main variation of Arya verses. Chapala. Garu Majjago, Jakaro, Garu Majjago. This is a compound, actually. This should be connected. Garu Majjago. Garu is a heavy syllable. Majja is middle. Go is something which happens in the middle. Majjago, something which happens, which occurs in the middle. So Garu Majjago, something which happens in the middle of heavy syllables. Something which happens in the middle of heavy syllables. Garu Majjago. What is that something? Jakaro. there should be ja group. There should be ja group in the middle of heavy syllables. So that means before the ja group, there should be a heavy syllable, and after the ja group, there should be a heavy syllable. That means that is the meaning of garu majjago jakaro. Ja group should be in the middle of heavy syllables. And which ja group we are referring to? Which ja group we are referring to? Ja groups can be in many places, you know. In the sixth place, there can be a ja group, and in all even places, there can be ja groups. We know that in odd places, first, third, fifth, and seventh places, there cannot be ja groups, but in even places, second, fourth, sixth, these places, there can be ja groups. So which ja group should be in the middle of heavy syllables? Chatuthako, dutiyako, fourth ja group, and second ja group. Okay, so in a verse, there are ja groups in the second place and the fourth place. In the fourth one is also a ja group, and the second one is also a ja group, and those both ja groups should be in the middle of heavy syllables. Then we call it a chapala verse. Okay, so here also let's read the meaning. When the jaganas in the second and fourth bars, when the jaganas in the second and fourth bars are in between two heavy syllables, it is called as chapala. It is called as chapala. So this also should have the normal arya characteristics, gananiyama and yatiniyama. So there should be antagaru, there should be chatta jagana or nagana, and there should be other extra 6 groups apart from antagaru and chatta, 6th group. And after that, in that normal arya verse, what should happen is that there should be ja groups in the second place and the fourth place. Let's check this. Garu Maj is the first group, and let's see the second group. Jago Ja is the second group. It is a ja group. Can you observe that? Jago Ja is the second group, and it has been a ja group. And let's see the fourth group. Karo is the third group, and then fourth group. Chatutha, cha light, tut heavy, th light. So it is also the ja group. Chatutha is a ja group. So you can observe that in this example, second group and fourth groups are ja groups. And another condition is there, those ja groups should be in the middle of heavy syllables. So let's see. Garu Maj. Maj is a heavy syllable, isn't it? Maj is a heavy syllable. Maj. And after that heavy syllable, Jago Ja. Ja group is there. And then after that ja group, Ka. Here is the heavy syllable. So the second ja group is in the middle of 2 heavy syllables. And after that, the fourth group also should be in the middle of heavy syllables. You see, Ro is a heavy syllable. After that heavy syllable, Chatutha, fourth group is there. And after the fourth group, Ko, a heavy syllable is there. So this is chapala verses. So you can conclude that this third group in a chapala verse should always be a magana. Should always be a magana, because now we know that second group should always be a jagana, and the fourth group should always be a jagana. But another rule, we can create another rule, that is the third group should always be a magana, because in the third group, the beginning measure should also be a heavy one, because of the rule of the verse. Beginning syllable should also be a heavy one, and the ending syllable should also be a heavy one. So such groups, there are only 2 such groups. One is magana and the other one is, what's the other one? What's the other group? The beginning syllable is also garu, and the ending syllable is also garu. I'm asking from the all 8 groups.
It's Sagana. No, it's Ragana.
Yeah, it's Ragana. It's Ragana. Yeah. In Ragana, it's Majja Lahu, isn't it? Garu Lahu Garu. Garu Lahu Garu. It's Ragana. Garu Lahu Garu. So in Ragana also beginning syllable is Garu and the ending syllable is Garu. But we do not use Raganas in Arya verses, isn't it? We do not use Raganas in Arya verses. So let's say you put a Bhagana here in this place, in the third group place. If you put Bhagana in the third place, what happens is that the beginning syllable is a heavy one. In Bhagana, you know, in a Bhagana, light structure is like that, heavy, light. So beginning syllable is a Garu, heavy one. So because of that, the second Jagana is followed by a heavy syllable. It's correct. But then what happens is that there are two light syllables, light, heavy, light. So ending syllable is light. So what happens is that the fourth group, fourth Jagana, we told that in the fourth Jagana should be in the middle of heavy syllables. Okay, in the middle of heavy syllables. So if the ending syllable of the third group is a light one, then the rule is broken. The fourth group is not in the middle of heavy syllables then. So because of that, we cannot use Bhagana there, and we cannot use Sagana and any other Gana here. We can only use a Magana. Okay, please think about that. You will understand it. We have no time to explain further. So this third group can only be a Magana. It's not mentioned in the verse, but we can conclude because other groups cannot be here. Only Magana can be here in the third group. And let's go to the first group. In the first group, here it's a Sagana. Garu Majji is a Sagana. And this can also be a Magana, isn't it? Because the ending syllable should be a heavy one in order to make the second group in middle of heavy syllables. Second group should be in the middle of heavy syllables. So in order to do that, you can use a Magana instead of Sagana. In Sagana also ending syllable is Garu, and in Magana also ending syllable is Garu. So you can use a Magana instead of Sagana. So you can use Sagana or Magana in the first place. So can you use any other group in this first place? Please can say, can you use any other group in the first place apart from Sagana and Magana?
Nagana.
Nagana.
Yeah.
Nagana. If you use a Nagana, then is that correct? Is that a Chapala verse if you use a Nagana?
I think Nagana in the first place is okay because of four syllables. We only need to follow the second, we only need to keep the second and fourth is Jagana. Between the Jagana, that's Magana. So, and the sixth group is one syllable, light syllable, and the group. And so that is all.
But if you use the Nagana, then it's going to end with a light syllable. But here,
what is 4 more, are they?
No, but then the second group has to come after the heavy syllable, right? So the rule.
No,
Yeah.
second group is Jagana.
Yeah, but it has to come after a heavy syllable, and that heavy syllable has to come from the first group.
Yeah, that is the case because there is a condition. There are two conditions, isn't it? There are two conditions. The second and the fourth group should be Jaganas. Okay, that is the first condition. Second condition is that those Jaganas should be in the middle of heavy syllables. In the middle of heavy syllables. So before the Jagana, there should be a heavy syllable. And after the Jagana, there should be a heavy syllable. In the fourth group also, before the Jagana, there should be a heavy syllable. After the Jagana, there should be a heavy syllable.
I thought it is only following, for example, between the between the two jaganas, there's a magana. I thought it's only like that.
No, that's not the case.
Yes, it's correct, Bante. It's just it means the second bar or fourth bar. It's between the two or fourth. We have the magana in the between two bars. Not the first, not the after fourth. It's not correct, Bante. It's
No, that's like that. Actually, there is not a rule like the third group should be a magana. There is not a rule. The rule is that, you see, the rule is that the jaganas in the second and fourth bars, in the second bar and in the fourth bar, there are jaganas. And those jaganas are in between heavy syllables. Jaganas are in between heavy syllables, not heavy syllables are in between jaganas. If you say that heavy syllables are in between jaganas, then that is correct. But what has, yeah, did you get it? If you say that heavy syllables should be in between two jaganas, then that is correct. But what is said is that two jaganas should be in between heavy syllables. So one jagana, let's say second jagana, this second jagana should be in between heavy syllables. That means after this jagana there should be a heavy syllable, and before this jagana there should be a heavy syllable. That's the rule.
Oh, okay. No, Bante, I got it. I got it.
Okay. So that's the rule. So because of that, we concluded by ourselves that the third group should be a magana. Otherwise, this cannot be done. You see, in order to make the second group followed by a heavy syllable, and in order to make the fourth group, which is following a heavy syllable, we should make the third group beginning with a heavy syllable and ending with a heavy syllable. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So there are two such groups, magana and ragana. But we cannot use ragana in Aryavasa, so we can only use magana as the third group. And when we focus on the first group also should be ending with a heavy syllable in order to make the second group in the middle of heavy syllables. Okay, so here you can see in the example also, garu maj is a heavy syllable. So because of that, this jagana is in middle of heavy syllables. Before and after there are heavy syllables. So instead of this sagana, you can also use magana. Then also there is a heavy syllable at the end. So can you use some other
ragana, but because we don't use ragana here.
Yeah, of course. You can use ragana, but we don't use raganas in Aryavasa. So because of that, you cannot use ragana. Only sagana or magana can be there in the first place. Okay. So let's go to the fifth place. Chatutha. This is the fourth group, and after the fourth group also there should be a heavy syllable. So you see ko dutti. It has been a bhagana. So what other groups can you put there instead of bhagana?
Magana.
Yeah. Magana.
Yeah. Only bhagana and the magana can in the fifth place. We can only do.
Yes, of course, you're correct. You can only put bhagana or a magana because it should be beginning with the heavy syllable. We all know that there are only we use only 5 groups in Aryavasas. Bhaja sa sabba galahu. That means bhagana, jagana, sagana, nagana, and magana. So from those 5, yes.
Can we use tagana? Can we use because the beginning of garu tagana?
Yes, we can use tagana because it is beginning with the garu. But the case is that we don't use taganas in the Aryavasas. Can you remember that in the introductory chapter? Yeah.
Yes. Remember.
Yes, yes. We learned that we use only 5 groups from the all 8 groups. We don't use all 8 groups here. So actually, we until now we did not we did not see Tagana or Ragana or Yagana within these verses, because we do not use those 3 verses here. So in the fifth group also can only be Bhagana, as you see in the example, or Magana. Okay, so that is Chapala. So time is over, but let's just go and see an example for this. Here, Tapita is one group. Tapita, one group. Sihala, another group. Bhasa, another group. But one letter is remaining. You see, one letter is remaining. Bhasa ya, by the Sinhala language. Sihala Bhasa ya, by the Sinhala language, or from Sinhala language. Bhasa ya, it is one word. So you cannot take this ya to the second line. Because of that, you keep this year in the first line, and that becomes a Vipula verse. This is no longer a Patya verse, because in a Patya verse you can only keep 3 groups, but here you cannot only keep 3 groups, because there is another extra letter you should keep here. So because of that, this becomes a Vipula verse, and you count the second line beginning from the year like this. Yadipa is the 4th group. Yadipa is the 4th group. Vasi is the 5th group. Na is the what you call Chattalahu. Matha is the 7th group. Ya is the Antagaru. Okay, this is a good example for Vipula verses. This is a good example for Vipula verses. Let's see about the Chapala verse before we finish. This is an example for Chapala verses. In the 13th 13th verse, the second half, Avi Mut. You can see Avi Mut is a sagana ending with heavy syllable, and then the second group, Ta Tanti, is a jagana. Ta Tanti is a jagana. Magga is a magana. So this second jagana is in the middle of 2 heavy syllables, Magga. And then the 4th group is also a jagana, Vipassa jagana. And the 5th group is also a magana beginning with the heavy syllable. So this is an example for Chapala verses. Okay, so we will focus on this in the next discussion also, Chapala and Vipula, and there are 2 more verses to learn. They are Mukha Chapala and Jagana Chapala. We finished 22nd verse, Chapala. There are 2 more variations of Chapala, like Mukha Chapala and Jagana. Actually, nothing to learn. It's if you find Chapala characteristics in the first half, you call it Mukha Chapala, and if you find Chapala characteristics in the second half, you call it Jagana Chapala. That's all. But we should focus on the words and the meaning of these verses. So let's do it in the next discussion. Then Arya Jati or Arya verses will be finished in the next discussion. Okay, do you have any questions? No questions, right?
No question.
Okay, then next wind up our discussion by reciting Buddha Sasanam.
So Bante, in the book, in the book, we should not, yes, we should not use the comma after third part, right? Is it better if because use the comma after third part? Very easy to misunderstanding, right?
Where in our book, in the Vuttodaya book?
Yes, in our book. No, here. Garu machago.
Chakaro, yes.
Yes, because we use comma after third part, right?
Yes, right. Yes, right.
Yes. It's very it's better if we don't use the comma here, right?
No, actually we can use the comma here because after the third bar, the first line finishes. First line ends after the third bar. So you
Yes,
can
we
use comma.
Comma here, very easy to mix it with the Pāḷi verse.
Yeah, actually this is same with the Pāṭya verse. This is very same with the Pāṭya verse. You should separate you should have the line break there. This is very same with the Pāṭya verse. Only difference is that inside that Pāṭya verse, the second and fourth groups are jaganas and they are in the middle of heavy syllables. That is the only difference. Actually, other Pāṭya characteristics are here also. So it's actually not easy to differentiate Pāṭya and Chapala. It's difficult to differentiate Pāṭya and Chapala actually. Yeah. So comma should be put there.
Yes, I see. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so then let's recite Buddha Sasanam Chirang Titthatu. Buddha Sasanam Chirang Titthatu. Buddha Sasanam Chirang Titthatu. Buddha Sasanam Chirang Titthatu. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. But thank you so much for participating in class.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bande.
Sadhu,
Sadhu.
sadhu.
Bande.